is happening, and leave it at that. I was really thrilled. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Do I need a microphone or? Okay. Good. I was really thrilled by when Monica, where is she? Okay, there she is. She asked me to give this presentation, and I accepted it because even in Catechetics, which is my area, or religious education, is we need to talk about the issue of freedom. That the act of faith or formation in the faith cannot be forced. We have always to keep that in mind. So what I'm planning to do today is, and this is going to be a little bit more philosophical presentation, so I am going to really prick your brains to think with me, okay? Because we need to find out what are the foundations when we say religious freedom. And understanding these principles, we will see that what is good for us as Christians is also good for the Muslims, for the Hindus. We cannot claim we as Christians to have religious freedom and other religions do not have it, or other philosophies of life. And that is the challenge that we are facing in our society. So in my presentation, I will focus on two key issues. One is, what are the features of religious freedom? And the other one is the importance and significance of religious freedom for our own faith. And the presentation is going to be divided into 5 parts. And mainly, I am drawing my information from a document by Vatican II, from Vatican II. It's called Dignitatis Humanae, translated, it's human dignity. But the Vatican also gave it another title in English, and it's called On the Right of the Person and of Communities to Social and Civil Freedom in Matters Religious. And this was promulgated on December 7, 1965, 53 years ago, and it's still relevant. So, by way of introduction, I'm going to ask you to do a simple exercise with me. Then we address the issue, what is truth? What is freedom? What is religious freedom? And then the significance and importance of religious freedom from our faith. So, everyone has a copy of the presentation? You have all the slides that I was planning to use. I'm not going to be bothered anymore. Let's turn it off so that you focus on me. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to do 2 questions, to answer 2 questions. You can write them up or just think over. By the way, how much time do I have?
Until 8.
Oh, okay. So let's try to go for until 8 and then have an hour for questions. Because once I start talking, it's you know me already, no? Okay, so on your slide there, on the first page, I hope you can see it. There are 2 questions. Why did you come this evening? What's the reason or reasons for you coming here? Think about it. The second is, what are your expectations from this gathering? Let me give you 2 minutes for reflection. You can write them down, because I really wish if some of you would like to share them, that would be great, so that we learn from one another. Why did you come? What motivated you? Why did you come? And second, what are your expectations? Yes.
I'm just kind of perplexed why it seems in this age that it's even a question about religious freedom. And yet there does seem to be controversy now if one acts in accord with one's faith. And you see that in a lot of circumstances, including a lot of 5-4 decisions in the Supreme Court where the odds are 9-0.
Okay. So in other words, you have a question and you are seeking an answer. Okay. Anyone from this side?
There's been so much news about religious freedom recently in the news, and given the what the Supreme Court has decided on relative to religious freedom, and I thought, well, if I come here, maybe I can, Father Magro can get into more, give me more insight about religious freedom.
Okay. So again, it's we are impacted by our own environment, questions are being raised, and we want to know answers. Okay?
Just to better understand what is religious freedom.
Okay? So better understanding. Okay?
Deeper understanding from a priest's perspective.
Oh, okay. From a priest's perspective, well, that's right, because I'm trying to share with you what the church.
To find my voice.
Okay? To find your voice.
How does religious freedom affects my faith?
Okay? How freedom affects your faith.
With all that's happening in the world today, to make sure I truly understand what is religious freedom and not responding based on emotion and anger, but to have a clear understanding of what religious freedom is.
Okay?
Also would like to be able to, lots of times, people tend to interpret religious freedom as freedom from religion, and, be able to kind of explain the difference. We still are people of faith, and we need to defend our faith, how we do that.
Okay.
I suppose, religious freedom doesn't mean religion doesn't exist, but, it's not freedom from religion. It's kind of a little bit of twist and kind of misunderstanding sometimes.
I want to know what I can do to help keep our freedom. What action should I take? Because I see we are losing.
Okay. Good. So I think we can say there is a common element here, that we have questions and we are seeking answers. You agree?
Yes.
Right.
And in seeking answers, you are also raising the question, I want the right answer. You don't want to be deceived, no? In fact, Victoria told me that it would be like preparing perspective of a priest, assuming that I won't lie. Now, St. Augustine have a very good quote, that even a deceiver, a one who deceives, does not like to be deceived. And that's we need to keep in mind. So, in other words then, you are here because you are searching the truth without knowing, being so sophisticated. No? Because that is what the truth. You want something that is meaningful, satisfies your answers, and gives meaning to your life. That is why I made this answer, this question. And the other two is, why did you come here too? Were you impelled by something? Curiosity? So that's an internal force. But thank God nobody commended you, hey listen, Father Magro is leaving, he has to go. You didn't. So that is where then freedom and truth go hand in hand. We cannot search for freedom unless we are free to search it. So we need then to see then, if you look at the third slide on the first page, what can we say as conclusions? I really wish to go three. That freedom and search for truth are two sides of the same coin. If I am free for what purpose? And this is going to be one of the challenges of modernity, where we absolutize freedom for the sake of freedom. Let me give you a very concrete example. It's my example, modern art. I see a block of colors. I have no idea what they mean except for the artist. I have to interpret what it is. Art for its own sake. I don't want to demean it. But this is where I just do things because I am free. That is absoluting freedom, just for the sake of freedom. So we need to answer that question. Okay, what is going on? Second is that we human beings, as we did this exercise, and we do it so often, is we are people who like to self-reflect. We have consciousness. We have questions. Now, there is an argument, and I have a philosopher here, I have to be very careful what I say, is that the fact that I can ask a question, I ask it because I have a hope to have an answer. Otherwise, I will not raise the question. We human beings are created this way. So we need to be self-critical. And we need to ask the question, what is going on in our world? The third element to conclusion that I really wish to draw so far is we need the freedom to act on truth. Because I will do the presentation, when I find something that is truthful, I am being challenged whether I live according to the truth or not. So, what is truth? What are we talking about? If we look on the second page, we have 4 categories of truth. And we need to be very careful not to mix the 4 of them. The first one is what's called practical truth, or common experience. It's the impact of the world on us. Say, for example, like hunger, the need for food, water and shelter, meaning of life, what is happening. We can also the need for friendship, purpose of life. So that is the way that the world is impacting on us. We can deny it. I find it very interesting. So, for example, on campus, it's raining, and you see some young students without an umbrella, without any raincoat, but they're walking in the rain. I don't know what they think, I don't want to judge them, but for me, I find it, wait a minute, are not realizing that the rain is hitting you and the water is soaking you. So we can always deny ourselves, but there is that element that I need to listen to this common experiences, so there is something that my body itself is telling me that there is something. If I am hungry, I'm hungry. I can deny it, but there is that element of truth. Then there is another category of truth, is the scientific truth, which is achieved through experimentation. Now this is very interesting because there is then what is called a correspondence theory or understanding of truth. Because we are raising a deep philosophical question. What is truth in itself? In the scientific, it's based on correspondence. Say, for example, like if you used your car, now to come here, and there is certain rules of mechanics. We have discovered them through experimentation. And the car has to behave according to these laws to move. Aerodynamics. A plane has to follow these laws. So, by way of reflecting, we have created certain laws derived from experience and observation and experimentation. And we found that when we use these laws, reality responds to it. I create an aeroplane according to the laws of aerodynamics, and the plane flies. So there is a correspondence between what we have created and reality itself. So that is science. Now, sometimes some people also say, for example, this is the only ultimate way of getting to know things. In a physics or scientific way, we have the material. We have biology. We have chemistry. We can analyze it. We can create huge labs. We come to conclusions, and we're always refining the conclusions, because we answer a question and the answer itself raises questions. But then there is also another set of truths, It's philosophical truths that we derive by reasoning, by logic. Just an exercise of the intellect. So we are drawing certain ethical issues, for example, like Emmanuel Kant, who lived in the 17th century, by analyzing what means to will something. And he comes to the conclusion of what is called the categorical imperative, that every human person needs to be respected for who he or she is as a human person. So he started from a concept and derived certain conclusions. Politics. How are we going to govern ourselves? Okay? It's not something scientific that you can go and analyze it. So we create theories. The last, so far, theory of politics, and all the political theorists here can correct me, because I'm not one, is we derive it by reflecting. We saw that having a monarchy, it's not that ideal. There is a great abuse of power. So on further reflection, we created the notion of democracy. Are we arriving at a point that democracy is not serving our needs? Living in a world now that is globalized? I don't know. But those are elements that we derive from reasoning. Some ethical issues. We also, Catholics, believe in natural law. We can discover it by reason alone. But there is the fourth category, and this is what we are talking about when we talk about religious freedom. That there are certain truths that are revealed to us. For example, that we Christians believe that not just only there is a God, but there is a Trinity. How can you figure it out? There is no human experience telling that there is three in one. It does not make any sense. That there is a God, we can perhaps arrive to it by an experience of beauty, which is very diverse. Think about an experience of something beautiful for you. I had one student when I did this exercise, and she said, when she went to see the Grand Canyon, that really blew her. For another said, when I saw my first nephew, he said that was something that blew me, in the sense, I love my brother, my elder brother, but when I went to the hospital and see his firstborn child, what is beauty? Where is this coming? It's something, it's a gift. So we ask those questions. Religious truth goes more beyond that. Who is this God? How are we to live the right life? Now, when we talk about religious freedom, we are talking about this fourth category of truth. Sometimes also called religious claims. They are claims of what is true coming from a religious source. Unfortunately, we do not have one religion that satisfies all. And that is where we need to be very careful. Because the notion, just one example, the notion of God is so diverse. If we put a Christian, an Islam person, a Muslim, and a Jew, we are not going to, we can agree on certain elements of what it means to believe in God. But we Christians are going to say, we believe in the Trinity. A Jew would not accept that. A Jewish person would not accept it. So this is where we are talking about religious freedom. So we are talking about religious truths. Okay? Now, that's about, truth too. What is true then? And it is the middle slide in the second page. I'm going to move it because I think I have more material than enough. That's always typical of me. What is true for one, which is universal, it's applicable to all. So it cannot just be true to me and not and false to you. And it is where we need to dialogue the religions. Okay? But on the one hand, is we cannot say that violence is part of religion. That's a contradiction. But what is true? If it is true, if it is truly true, it is very difficult to say. It has universal governance. It is applicable to any place. So that is where truth is universal. Okay? Now, if something is true, the truth itself challenges me either to accept it or reject it. It's not automatic. Because sometimes we think that if I discover something that is true, I'm going to accept it. No. We human beings do not work that way. Truth challenges me to accept it or not. It could be that I am afraid of truth, and I reject it. God is love. No, God is for me, it's a cruel person. And I do not accept that religious truth. Even if I accept truth, does not mean that I am going to live according to the truth. You see how complex we are? Now, if you want to read this, I am drawing from a Canadian theologian, a Jesuit, Bernard Lonergan, where he talks about what happens when we experience truth, in this case. We experience it, but then we move to another level, he calls it of consciousness, whether I will accept the truth or not. The third level is whether I will act according to the truth or not. Yes?
Philosophically, you're saying there's no absolute truth?
There is. Because that the search for truth is moving me to come to the conclusion that there is one truth, that it is true for everybody.
That's your interpretation, or individually.
But also as a group then, because what is good for me as a human person is to be true for you as a human person. What is good for me as an American, Maltese American, is also good for a German, for any human person. So that is then the power of truth. And for us then the question is, but religions are going to tell us it is God who is the full truth. Okay? But not everybody, not all religions accept this claim. Or a person who is money-minded, the ultimate truth is money or power. So that is where we need to be very careful then. That's why we Christians believe that we need another source besides human knowledge or human reasoning to know what is the truth. Okay? It's okay, Jim? Okay? Listen, feel free to interrupt, okay?
Father,
Yes.
what was the name of the Canadian
Okay, his name is Bernard Lonergan, and his book is Method in Theology.
method in theology?
In theology. It's not an easy book, don't read it before you go to bed. It really gives you a headache, but it is a very good book. It talks about it. So, let me, because I didn't want to do this. To discover then the truth too, we need the help of one another. Even in the case of Christianity, let's perhaps focus on us. But what I'm trying to say is this: the search for truth is human quest, whatever your religious background is. Okay? So there is this search for truth, and we need to accord it to everyone, because that's a truth. It's an anthropological principle. So even those who disagree with me are ultimately searching the truth. We need to keep this. This is where also the principle of respect and dignity of one another. If I am admitting I am searching for the truth, that's why I started with that question, why you are here, then I have to admit even those who disagree with me are searching for the truth. The point of disagreement is what type of truth are we talking about? Now, we Christians believe, and this is a very bold religious claim and statement, that in Christ Jesus, we have the fullness of truth. That's a claim. We believe it. When I am saying claim, be careful. I'm not saying I am denying it. But we Christians believe that Jesus said, I am the truth. And Jesus himself is the one who leads us to the truth. If you want to read, this is perhaps much easier than Bernard Lonergan, is the document by John Paul II, Fides et Ratio, Faith and Reason, which I highly recommend, but read it slowly. I'm drawing a lot of elements from here. This notion of truth is coming from him. You need only to read the first 2-3 chapters, because then he goes about the role of philosophy in theology, which you can read it, but perhaps it's a bit. So, we need to keep this in mind. Second, another truth that we have always to keep in mind when we talk about religious freedom is the notion of freedom itself. Now, in one of the slides, I gave you a quote. It's the last slide on page 2. Let's look at that, because that's a very powerful understanding of freedom from Vatican II. The way we are created. Now, this is, again, this is where we differ with society. We Christians believe, and the Jews are with us. Or perhaps I should say the other way around. We have appropriated a Jewish anthropological perspective that each and every human person is created in God's image and likeness. So, each one of us is created in the image and likeness of God. And God was not forced to create. That was the freedom of God. Now, Big Bang, I'm not talking about the Big Bang, the television series. It's the Big Bang. Was there something that forced God to act? The Jewish faith and Christianity rejected that. God acted out of God's free will to create. So creation is a free act, it's a free gift of God. Since we are created in the image and likeness of God, we have that type of freedom. And God wills that we decide our own future, our own life, by giving the gift of freedom. So when we are talking about freedom, we are not talking about the issue of choosing between A and B, or between any type of religion. I am to use my freedom in search for the truth, what is good, what is true for me. Because truth leads me to goodness. Because what is true is good. So it's very interesting. Truth leads me to morality. By itself. If I discover something true, by itself, it's good for me and for all. So by freedom then, I am not just only choosing between A and B, but I am choosing my own life. In philosophical terms, we call it subjectivity. I am creating a history. And you cannot understand me unless you give me a context. That's why Melanie introduced me to that. In very brief sentences, she mapped out my decisions. I went to Germany. I came to the United States. Those decisions create my identity. I am who I am by the decisions that I made. Many of you, I'm seeing couples here, have decided to marry. That was your decision. And your decision is aimed to permanency. Once you are married, you say, I am married. Could be you are divorced, could be you are separated, but you have to say, I was married, or I am married. So the notion of freedom is not a notion of just choice. That's what I really wish to, we can look at the slides so that we can open up more of the discussion. So, freedom then is to choose what is good, and in religious terms, for us Christians, is to choose Christ and God through the Holy Spirit. That's the religious freedom. But if I am saying I am free to choose my religion, by the same argument, any other believer is free to choose his or her religion. You need to be very careful. Here, this is where it's getting tricky now. Yes?
You said that truth leads to good.
To goodness, yeah.
But there are bad truths. From
No?
practical experience, there are bad people. That's true. So there's
Okay, but
bad.
that they are bad people, but that they are not following the truth. That's what makes them bad.
Yeah, but from the bracket, from one of your four types of
Mhm.
truths, it's a truth that's bad.
It's true that there are bad people. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
What makes them bad? That could be an issue that we need to discuss. And that is where morality comes in and where we need then revelation. Okay? Because, for example, that people, it could be that I can discriminate against a class of people. But, Jamal will come back. But is it true, does it follow the belief that every human person is created in the image and likeness of God? So that's why we need to be very careful about the principle. If for us religious persons, Christians, we believe that every human person is created in the image and likeness of God, even those who disagree, who I call evil, also carry the image and likeness of God in them. We have to accept that. Jerry.
You just about answered my question right there. But everybody's born in the image of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, there's only one God.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that, has a different religion, if they practice their faith
Okay.
directed, even though they call God Jesus Christ,
Mm-hmm.
how does God accept that? I mean, how does he judge them? Are they going to eternity as well?
I think we need to ask God. I'm not going to be cynical here. But, however, that is what the teaching says. We have the phrase, extra ecclesiam Lazarus. That was, unless you become part of the church, you cannot be saved. We have, on further reflection on Vatican II, found that those who have not heard about Jesus, but have lived according to their conscience, and try to do good according to what they were taught, and also the conscience, say, for example, you shall not kill, okay, or should be honest, I think that's common. We believe that God is merciful and will be saved. That's what we believe. The question is, if you have already known Jesus, what are you going to do with Jesus then?
Yeah.
And this is an enormous question. So, when we talk about religious freedom, it applies to us as Christians. What we mean is this, that every person and a group of persons can act and behave according to their religious persuasion. Okay? Because I cannot say the principle applies to me. Okay, this is the clashes, for example, we as Christians, we misinterpreted this because we were afraid that people are going to hell. So we forced people to convert, the conquistadors. Okay? We do not have a nice record there. We do not. Islam, some interpretation of Islam, unless you become Islamic, Muslim, either I kill you or you pay the tax. My home country, we have a document now surfaced from the 12th century. We were under Arab rule. The population of my small island, 20 square miles, decided to pay the tax to practice their Christianity under the Islamic rule. That is where now the conflicts start coming. But if we believe in freedom and truth itself, then what is applicable to me is applicable to you. Even if we disagree on the notion of who God is. Okay? The freedom of religion then is to accord me that freedom to practice my beliefs, what I hold dear. But I have to accord the same rights to others. Now, the Vatican II, and if you look at page 3, sorry, page 4, so you can see that how much I'm moving. Okay, so let's look at page 4 because this is the part is that, okay, so there are two letters when we talk about religious freedom. The religious freedom is that concerns the individual, me as an individual, that I am to feel free to practice what I believe. Now, that's a very important statement. If I am a Christian, I have the right to practice my Christianity. What about if I am a homosexual? Do I have a right to live my beliefs?
Is that a faith?
It's not in a religion, that's a good question. Or a good comment. So that is where we need to be very careful not to mix things. Okay?
So what was the answer?
The answer is, if I am a Muslim, then I have to be accorded to have my mosque. Why not?
No, I mean, your question about homosexual.
Oh, yeah, homosexual, let's leave it, then I brought it in. That's another issue that we have, because that's internal. That's an internal issue about then how we interpreting the role of homosexuality in Christianity itself.
So we were just learning yesterday when Nina Shin came, some mosques were closed because they promote violence.
Okay.
So that's, yeah, they're entitled to a mosque, but some mosques promote
Yes.
violence.
That is where I'm going to say, because according to the Vatican document on human dignity, religious freedom has to be put in a context, and there are certain limits. There are 5 of them, and I listed them on the first slide, sorry, 4. 4 limits to religious freedom. The first slide on page 4. One is that all religions, whatever their claims are to promote a just social order. If there is violence in the name of God, that's not a just social order. It cannot be. So we need to keep that in mind, that even religious freedom applicable to us and to all other religions. Second is that we need to respect the rights of others. Okay? Whatever your religious persuasion is. We cannot just say, I am superior to you. We need to be very careful. Jesus never did it. That's going to be my last slide, but I can say it. Third is that religious freedom is to promote the common good. The good of all citizens. That's a huge issue. Even those who are in the minorities. The practice of religion should not discriminate. We need to be very careful about these things. All religions are to promote the common good. We need to create that environment. The fourth one is then justice and civility. I think we have lost civility right now. Does it mean that because I am anonymous on the internet, I can say whatever I want? We have lost these skills. But all types of religions are to promote justice and civility. Because ultimately, religion is at the service of the common good, not just one particular group of persons. Now, what are then some of the rights then of religious communities? Because if we are, like we Christians, or Catholics, because Christianity is a group of, unfortunately, we splintered among ourselves, the document, paragraph 4, lists, how many are there? 3, 6, 9 elements that they say they are by right of any religious community. Now be careful, because this document on human dignity is not just talking about Catholics. Be careful about it. It's setting certain principles, and this is the beauty of this Vatican II. Many of you remember that I was a kid. I don't think the fathers of the church knew what they were doing. Because you look at these documents and you say, my goodness, what a wealth. They are not talking about us Catholics, they are talking about humanity. They are really creating precedents, deep insights into us as human beings. So one is that any religious group has the right to self-govern itself. How often politicians have used religion? I can give you case studies from my own home country. We had a socialist government with Marxist tendencies, Don Mintoff, big clashes with the church in the 1980s. Okay? To win the election, what did he do? He managed to talk with the Pope, John Paul II, sent it to each home, saying that his problem, the government's problem with the church, is with the local bishop, not with the Pope. He won again. Okay? We need to be very careful about it. Self-governance. What about the infiltration of the KGB in the Eastern Russian Orthodox Church? I don't know whether perhaps the CIA infiltrated. I don't know. I don't know. But we have the right, as a religious community, to self-govern myself. That means I cannot interfere how a synagogue is going to be governed, or a mosque, or a Buddhist temple. Because if I admit that I can interfere, that means that they can interfere in mine. Not even the state, unless there is violence or one of those 4 elements, or the public order is being justified. Say, for example, and this happened, for example, what was called when they tried to bomb, the Catholics tried to bomb the parliament in England, the gunpowder revolt, you know? Yeah, where did they meet? In churches? So we need to be very careful about civil order and self-governance. So we need to promote religious freedom. Another one is public worship, that we have churches. For example, for me, that was very interesting. I was visiting Yugoslavia at that time, and not Zagreb.
Sarajevo?
No, not Sarajevo. It escapes me right now. Anyway, I was there for Corpus Christi. The church has to be built in the front like any other house. So you can walk by it and you don't realize it's a house. This has happened to many religions. That even the architecture itself has to fake the truth. No, religious freedom means that I can have my places of worship and identify them as places of worship. Another element is that we have assistance, that we can offer assistance to one another, because we form a community. So we have the right to assist one another. This is the big issue, for example, right now with the Sharia law. Sharia law is ultimately how Muslims assist one another. They have a different banking system. Now, should they enforce it on us? No. But we need to respect it too, unless it disrupts a just civil order. Another element is education and instruction. There's a big issue. Yes?
When you said Sharia law, like I have in my mind the notion that in Sharia law a woman can be stoned for committing adultery.
Okay.
Would the religious freedom say, well, they self-govern, they freely choose to be a part of that, and so we can't do anything to interfere because they've chosen that? Or do we say, based on human dignity, there, we ought to interfere with their?
You are pointing a very hard issue. Because that is one of the problems when we are talking about religious freedom. Because then not everybody, this is one of the issues, not every religion accepts the dignity of the human person. And unless we agree this, and I'm not sure whether you are aware of this, our nation, the United States, have not signed the Bill of Human Rights. Because we believe that our Bill of Rights is enough. And that is what the problems with religions is. Pope Benedict XVI, when he was still active as a pope, he said the key problem that we are facing now is anthropological, meaning how do we understand the human person? That is really a big issue. How are we going, for example, to convince, for example, the education of girls by the Taliban? Malala, you know the story of Malala? Because she just wanted to go to school. Because of a religious claim, girls should not go. This is the complexity now. What I am sharing is just principles, which is easy to talk about, okay? But we need to keep them in mind because we then are, I find that we have a prophetic mission. We as a Catholic Church. This has been a God-sent document, and it does not speak to just one religious group. But we need to talk with one another. Okay, so besides selecting or training, appointing, transferring of their own ministers, communicating with other local and international communities, buildings, properties, funds, and now the last one is no hindrance from the government. That is going to be an issue. And this is the sort of conundrum that those in government are going to face. On one side, either you deny religion, that the human beings do not have a religious dimension, a spiritual dimension, which is happening. Okay? If you say, I am going to allow religious freedom, then you need to balance that with a civil, just order. How are you going to balance these groups? Because religion, there are multiple of religions. And that is where we need to be, to sound our voice, to be part of the dialogue. The easiest way is to take one position. And this is what's happening, I think, this is my interpretation, of other groups of different philosophies of life. Look at the case of the, what's called, the Baker case. The masterpiece cake shop. Thank God, I think there is a precedent here, which is very good precedent. The Supreme Justice decided against the case because when it was done in the state, okay, one of the commissioners showed bias against the religious beliefs of the baker. And we have now a legal precedent that the religious beliefs cannot be discriminated. Where we used to have, we cannot discriminate against this group, which is good. I mean, we need it. Okay? We need to be very careful. Some minorities, they were, trashed. As if they don't have the right to exist. That's wrong. But it's wrong too to say because I have my religious beliefs, I do not have a right for them. So at least from the Supreme Court, that is set a precedent. The next step is going to be the case. And so far, the Supreme Justice, and again, correct me, there is the Flores from the state of Washington. Yeah. That is going to be more a litmus test. How to balance now these two claims of discrimination. And those are the complexity of living in the 21st century. You know? But we need to be very clear. So, if we move there, okay, because then there is another slide about the family life, which is very important. According to to this document on human dignity, the Vatican, we have insisted that it is the parents' responsibility to choose the religious education of their children and also the religion by which they want to live their life. And that is a principle that we as Catholics have been fighting for centuries. And I saw it working in my home country in the 1980s. The socialist government that we have confiscated all Catholic schools or tried to shut them, issuing a law that there could not be any assembly of more than 10 persons. And we were very clever. Do you know what we did at home? I was still in Germany, but I heard about it. They organized the whole school students' body in groups of 9. They used to meet in the garage, living rooms of teachers, so 9 students and 10. You don't need any permission of the government to assemble. When we came, we asked the Vatican, the bishops, to help us solve the problem. The Vatican used this argument. Parents have the right to choose the schools. So even in religious freedom, there is the element of the choice of schooling. Yes?
I don't know how this relates, but this came up also in one of the discussions this week, that the former Irish president, said that parents shouldn't baptize their